Good morning. All familiar with this award-winning movie, Forrest Gump. So using this as an example, the main character, Forrest, has an IQ of 75, which is considered a person suffering from intellectual disability. So let's have a recall. What is intellectual disability? Intellectual disability is usually diagnosed before the age of 18. So it is characterized by impediments in intellectual and adaptive functioning. So when we say intellectual functioning, it is the student's IQ, including abilities such as learning, practicing judgment, and problem solving, while adaptive behavior includes activities of daily functioning such as living independently and communicating, which they will be using in a real life setting. So persons with intellectual disabilities can benefit from therapy and intervention, but what are the services that are provided to them? So, children with intellectual disabilities can enroll in either mainstream schools or Sped schools depending on their individual needs and also with accommodations and modifications. So, for regular education classes or special education classes, there will be a collaboration or consultation or co-teaching services that focus on special educators and general educators working together to best meet the needs of students with disabilities as well as children who may at risk. And also one of the accommodation or modification with intellectual disability is individual or small group setting. So this program provides a tutoring program provides students with ID, uh, ID to help them increase their opportunity to benefit from regular class placement. So this is supplemental instruction, which focuses on their targeted IEP goals and objectives. But depending upon on students' individual needs, this instruction could include academic support as well as assisting students in becoming independent in the process of learning through the use of compensatory strategies or maybe the study or organizational techniques. So, to be diagnosed with ID, the child must have below average intellectual and adaptive skills. So the first person that you have to talk to is the child's doctor, in which child's doctor perform evaluation that includes interviews with parents, observations with the child, and giving standardized tests. So the child will be given standard intelligence test that helps the doctor determine the child's IQ, and also the doctor may also administer another test to provide an assessment for your child's daily living skills and also social abilities compared to other children in the same age group. So to form a diagnosis, the child's doctor will consider the test results, interviews with the parents, and the observations of the child. So this is where a comprehensive and individualized program developed with the help of appropriate specialists, which includes educators. So uh, so the related services that is common for the intellectual disability learners with intellectual disability is developmental behavioral pediatrician, speech pathologists, and occupational therapists. So, children with developmental concerns or delays can benefit from seeing developmental pediatricians. So, they are the specialists that understand the development concern of childhood. They treat kids with learning and behavioral issues. So, there are there is a series of things that developmental behavioral pediatrician may do as a part of the evaluation. So first, they will be needing the detailed history of the child. Then they can perform or do medical exam. Also observing and talking to the child, asking how the child acts in a variety of settings, seeking feedback from teachers at the child's school or daycare. So after looking at all the information, the doctor may make a diagnosis. So they are the ones who might help to recommend accommodations and services at school and also therapies outside of school. Next is a speech pathologist or a speech therapist. So they are the health work professionals who works with people with communication disorders and difficulties. So they help individuals attain their communication potential and improve overall speech and language skills. So using a standardized assessment tool, uh, they use it to gain a formal assessment of the person's baseline communication, functioning, and needs, which can be used to formulate therapy goals. So, for speech therapists, they help children and adults as well with receptive language challenges by working on areas such as building an eye contact, maybe utilizing minimal instructions and basic language. They can help to expand the individual's vocabulary and focusing on specific words to learn. And also incorporating visual cues such as pictures, gestures, or body language to enhance understanding. So using visual cues for washing their hands or maybe uh, a picture of a certain object like a chair or maybe showing a concrete object of a chair to help them understand and to also learn the word. Next will be the occupational therapies or the OT, which is specially trained to help patients perform daily activities safely and effectively while also promoting confidence, independence, and happiness. So it focuses on the life skills that individual needs for that will meet for their life and across the environment and where they spend time. So, developing life skills, emphasis on greater independence. It can be uh, manipulation and orientation skills for independent dressing, like buttoning their shirts, tying up their shoelace, putting on their shoes and their clothes. Also, can be included money management skills wherein they can identify the difference between a coin and a bill and also the value of the money. Also, the uh, food preparation skills such as using a knife to cut or maybe to spread and using appliances safely when they are cooking. Recognizing also or recognition of traffic signs and rules for navigating streets safely. So when they are crossing the road, what is the red light and what is the green light or the yellow light means. Use of public transportation and other independent skills for living at home and in the community as well. So for younger children, I mean for younger person, uh, they focus on school, home, and recreation activities, whereas for the adults, they involve assistance with employment, home management, leisure, and social activities. So next will be curricular adaptations. So as we all know that there are two adaptations to be made, which is accommodation and modification. Accommodation is an adjustment of how information is presented to a student so they can learn better. And while the modification is, this one is the adjustment in the actual information itself. So maybe, for example, requiring less content. So you have to maybe you can shorter the lesson, or maybe uh, reducing the number of vocabulary words that they need to know instead of 25 words a day. I mean, maybe you can do it as 5 words a day instead of 25 words. And also limiting their assignments and assessment to the easiest problem. So what are the accommodations for learners with intellectual disability? First, we have to accommodate their scheduling. For example, giving the student extra time to complete an assignment or test, or maybe breaking up the testing days over several days, because as we all know that they are slow in development, so they will giving them extra time will help them to complete the assignment independently. Next is the setting. So for example, having the student work in a small group or with a partner. So as we all know that learners with intellectual disability, they learn best when it is a small group, or maybe when it is one on one with a teacher. Next will be the materials. For example, providing the student with teacher notes or tape lectures. So this one, also giving concrete examples and visual demonstration whenever possible, because many students with intellectual disability learn best through visuals and kinetic experiences. Next category for accommodation is instruction. So for example, breaking a lesson up into smaller parts, uh, because as the student learns each component or each content, each lesson, then you can add additional components until the larger concept is taught and learned. So, chunking the concept for them to better understand what is the concept being taught. And also having the students work with a tutor can be also reducing the difficulty of the assignments. And last category is student response. So, for example, allowing the student to respond orally or on a computer. So, feedback is very important to them, and make sure to say your feedback to them as immediately as possible. So, next will be the modifications for learners with disability. So first is a quiet workspace. So uh, these children, they get distracted more easily and they are struggling with attention. So we have to ensure that the child has a work or study space that is quiet and free from um, distractions. And also using this space will also help them to study, and also to understand that this space is supposed to concentrate on the task or on the activity and not to play. Next is functional activities. So children with intellectual disabilities learn better through functional day-to-day activities. So it is best or better to teach practical things that will be useful, such as how to boil an egg or how to find their way to their friend's house. So, next is repetition of concepts over the day. So, children with intellectual disabilities need to learn a concept in different ways and have the opportunity to practice it many times in order to learn and to remember. So give them time as well as opportunities to practice the skills that you have taught them. So next is the teacher-student ratio. So one of the major modifications that need to be considered for children with intellectual disability is the student-teacher ratio. So ideally, it will there should be at least one teacher for every three children with intellectual disabilities, because these children require additional support and guidance as they work on their activities. In addition to the modifications for learners with intellectual disability, so for their assignments, they can complete different homework problems than their peers. So the problems will be much more easier for them to understand. They can answer different test questions with a simple, maybe with the simple words. And third, create alternate projects and or assignments. So they can learn also different materials, such as continue to work on multiplication while classmates move on to fractions. So they will be given a lot of time um, to learn the concept. They can get graded or assessed using a different standard than other students. And last, be excused from particular projects.